Well, there's 4 Premier League home games left to, as I said earlier, enjoy/endure. It's
Yippee.
Aston Villa on Saturday. I had to check back, Glenn. It was 1-0 back in December. Joe Lumley was in goal. I was expecting. I'd forgotten about the game. When I look back, I was thinking, oh, it would have been like 3 or 4-0, but maybe it wasn't. Wasn't as bad back then. But I was looking at this one, thinking maybe it's a chance for Villa to rest a few players on Saturday.
Well, it comes in between their 2 games against PSG in the Champions League quarter-final, doesn't it? So they got one on Wednesday, then they're playing us, and then they're playing PSG.
They should put the under-18s out, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought Villa had a ridiculously good squad at the start of the season, and then in the January window,
January business was extraordinary, wasn't it?
They signed Donny Marlon, Rashford, and Asensio. That's 3 top-level players, really. To come into an already strong squad. So if you look at their team from the last game, they beat Forest yesterday, was it, or the day before?
Yeah.
They on their bench they had Matty Cash, Luca Dean, Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa, John McGinn, Jacob Ramsey, and Marcus Rashford were all on the bench.
Not fair, is it?
So the first team, the players there: Martinez in goal, Watkins, Rogers, Onana, Tielemans. They've got a really good squad of players. So I don't think they could rest 8 or 9 against us, and they'd still have a very, very strong Premier League team, even if they put all those substitutes in it. And it will certainly be enough to beat us, you would have thought. Now they will want to win, obviously, because they'll want to qualify for the Champions League again next year, because obviously they're, even though they're in the quarterfinals, they're playing PSG. They're unlikely, to qualify through that route. So they're going to want to go for the top 4, and that 4th place is pretty wide open. There's a number of teams that could sneak in there.
5th is likely to do it now.
Yeah, so they're one of them. So they're not going to want to turn up and not care about this game. So it does. For our sakes, it does worry me a little bit. Obviously, you don't know what we're going to do. I mean, are we going to look at next season? In which case, is it worth the likes of Leslie Ugochukwu playing? Because he's obviously on loan. I personally think he should play, obviously, especially with McDowell's not there. But is there going to be anything that maybe certain players who are going to move, maybe they just won't want to play, so maybe there will be a few left field selections from us because we're already relegated. I hope not. I would hope that everyone, feels like they owe it to the supporters who turn up to at least make themselves available and give it a go. But what it's like sometimes when players reach the end of contracts, end of the season, and all that sort of stuff. Ryan Fraser, cough. So I'm not terribly hopeful. Like I'm not terribly hopeful for any game going into this. And if Villa, Unai Emery seems to be doing a fantastic job, and the club as a whole, they definitely seem to be backing the manager, as evidenced by the players they brought in January to an already strong squad. So they obviously really want to make a go of it this season, and I don't see us making too much of a dent in their ambitions, to be honest.
No, they're certainly flying at the moment, aren't they, Steve? As we've said, 6th in the league, and obviously those Champions League games as well. It's not really a surprise either, is it?
Not hugely, no. I mean, obviously they were good last season, and they've strengthened throughout this season over the 2 transfer windows. Obviously, with a little bit of PSR jiggery pokery with their friends at Chelsea in June last summer. And
good point.
Yeah, but they've obviously they sold John Duran, didn't they, to Saudi Arabia in January, which brought in a lot of money, which basically means they're probably not going to have to do anything a little bit shady this time. So that aligned with obviously top 5 finish, the money that comes from that Champions League. They'll probably be getting 40-50 million quid out of their Champions League run, you would imagine. All that money helps on the on balancing the books and keeping things above board. And yeah, you look at as you say, you look at those players they brought in January. Admittedly, Rashford and Asensio are only on loan. But you could certainly see that Rashford signing becoming permanent. Seems to have had a new lease of life where he's not quite under the utterly ludicrous spotlight that he was under at Man United. I mean, there's 30 players that you could hound for their performances and effort at Old Trafford, and he would have been a lot further down the list in my book. But yeah, they're a strong squad. Manager who, in league terms, has never really quite done it, but when it comes to knockout football, is just an absolutely extraordinary manager in terms of being able to prepare players for specific opposition in that knockout format, whether it's over one or two legs. And so I personally think Villa are probably favourites for the FA Cup.
Okay.
If you think that City are looking ropey as hell, I mean, that Manchester derby today sounded like a worse game of football than ours, which says something. So City are looking a little bit ropey. Obviously, no Haaland for the rest of the season. So they're there to be got at. I think if it's a Villa City final, I would be backing Villa all the way on that. I think. But I think if there's one weak spot, it's defence. Centre of defence, they've rotated quite a lot over the season, which I think is understandable, obviously, given the extra games they've had to deal with. But I think that has also brought out a little bit of the sort of old maverick stuff we used to see from Emi Martinez before he got the Golden Glove in the World Cup and decided to do what he did with the trophy. And so you've seen a few goals where you kind of think might have done a bit better there. So I think the trick with Villa is to take shots and take shots frequently. Kind of doesn't matter where you are really, because Martinez, I think, is I kind of rank him and Ramsdale as very similar style goalkeepers in that they're both very sort of happy to sort of get involved in a little bit of housery, a little bit of sort of winding people up, plenty of time wasting, but also they have these little moments where they just blank off and lose concentration. And so I think keep him on his toes by keeping him busy. I mean, I know that's easier said than done for our attack, but Villa are going to come to St Mary's and they will come to play. They're not going to sit deep and try and play on the counter, even though they're very good at doing that. I mean, look at the speed that they've got. You see the opening goal that Rashford scored midweek at Brighton, where he just went from back to front and he's just run past everybody. Like it was like watching sort of Roadrunner running past. I mean, Lewis Dunk trying to keep pace with Marcus Rashford was a sight to be seen. So they won't necessarily set up to play on the counter attack. They will look to force the game because at the end of the day they're sixth in the table. They're in the last 16s at the Champions League, and therefore you are kind of a good team in your own right, and therefore they will say, right, we're going to impose our game. So they'll be on the front foot. But that does mean that will leave space for us. They will rely on their own players to be good enough to not let our better players do anything useful. But I mean, who knows? I mean, now the pressure's off. It goes one of two ways. Either we suddenly start playing because the pressure's off, or we're even worse.
And what would you like to see? Because Glen was saying, like, there might be a chance to see some of the players that are going to be sticking around next year, maybe less of those that aren't. What would you be happy seeing for these last, was it 7 games?
I mean, frankly, given that we've got 10 points from theoretically putting our best 11 out every week, if we put anything less than our best 11 out every week, then we're going to get even more stuffed. So, no, I'd be sticking with play your best players, please, Ivan.
Yeah. Anything else on Villa? We did the score predictions, of course. if you're watching live, put your score prediction in the comments. Must just say, because he picked me up on it. Otherwise, Alfie got 3 points this week. So well done. 3 of our patrons as well in the Patreon League also correctly got the Spurs score right. Glenn, would you like to go first with your Villa prediction?
Yeah, it's going to be another. I was Steve predicted us to win against Spurs, didn't he? I'm not. We're not gonna go down that road. I'm not expecting the pressure being off to make a huge amount of difference, because the pressure's been off since October and we've still been shit for ever since, really. So I'm not expecting much from us. I'd be. Yeah, we do. I think hopefully hopefully Amo-Ameyaw will be fit, which will at least give us some sort of attack to cause them at least a few problems. But I'll go for a 3-1 Villa win.
See, I was going to go 3-0, and then Steve said about having shots from distance and you've got a chance. So then I changed that to 3-1. But now I'm thinking I don't want to have the same as you. So I'm going to go 4-1 to Villa. I think something might click for them. Steve?
I think it might play out quite similar to today's game, really, in terms of, I think Villa will start fast. They'll basically have a view of get the game won, and then we can manage players' minutes as we go. So I suspect they may kind of race into a 2-0 at half time and then just be quite happy to play it out, and ultimately the St Mary's crowd will get a bit disgruntled, and it'll all get a bit tedious in the second half. So 2-0 Villa.
Do you think there'll be empty seats again, Steve, on Saturday?
Well, mine will be. Unfortunately, I'm away on the stag do. So
Hey,
can we all come? Sounds more interesting.
I think the other thing to remember
Cracovia play instead.
Yeah, we're I mean, Flynn Downs is obviously not going to be there, so we're still going to have that issue in midfield. And I think after today, it's worth mentioning, I think Will Smallbone will start. I actually think he did okay when he came on as sub, even though it was a slightly fractured, strange end to the game. He certainly, I mean, he certainly put a lot more in than Aribo did. So I can imagine that he will start alongside Leslie, but that's still going to, it's still good. We're still going to have problems in the midfield area, and Villa are pretty strong in there with Amadou Onana, who is huge and a proper athlete. So it'll be interesting to see how we deal with him. But I think with the players we've got available, I think we are going to struggle.
Deep joy. Anything else tonight? I think we've covered quite a bit, haven't we, with the games?
Nothing else.
I just can't wait for it to be over. As I said, get past the Derby 11 points thing, so people can stop talking about that and just forget we exist to the end of the season, and then let's move on. And look forward maybe to the photograph of the corner flag or the front of the ground, whatever we tend to do. And as Steve said, I think it's important to get some sort of statement from the from someone in the corridors of power, just to let everyone know what's going on.